artists gave Motown everything, and Motown, it took it all back, then walked away. You know the name, you've heard the hits, maybe you slow danced to one at your wedding. But the people who made those songs, most of them didn't make it out whole. Some left broke, some died broke, and some never left at all. This is what happened after the music stopped. Number 10, Syreeta Wright. Syreeta Wright co-wrote Signed, Sealed, Delivered. That's Stevie Wonder's song, right? His voice, his delivery, his hit. But Syreeta wrote it with him. She also wrote It's a Shame for the Spinners, contributed to Where I'm Coming From, helped shape music of my mind. And here's what's wild. Even her obituary in 2004 led with Stevie Wonder's name. Singer Syreeta Wright, best known as the former wife of Stevie Wonder. That's how the world remembered her, not as the writer, not as the artist, as someone's ex-wife. Motown hired her as a receptionist in 1965. By 1968, she'd recorded her first single, I Can't Get Back the Love I Feel for You, written by Ashford and Simpson. It went nowhere. Gordy briefly considered her as Diana Ross's replacement in the Supremes before giving the spot to Jean Terrell. Syreeta married Stevie in 1970. They divorced in 1972. Her debut album came out the same year they split. Critically acclaimed, gorgeous production, peaked at number 185 on the charts. Her follow-up, Stevie Wonder Presents, Syreeta did slightly better, number 116. For the next decade, Motown kept signing her, kept releasing albums, kept relegating her to the background. She finally got a hit in 1980 with You, I'm Born Again, a duet with Billy Preston. By then, she'd been with Motown 15 years. She died at 57 from heart failure after battling cancer. And if you search her name today, the first thing that comes up is still Stevie Wonder. Motown made sure she stayed in the shadows, even after she left. Number 9, the Elgins. The Elgins gave Motown its sound before Motown knew what its sound was. Holland Dozier Holland wrote for them. Same team behind the Supremes' biggest hits. Darling Baby and Heaven Must Have Sent You weren't throwaways. These were records the trio spent real time on because they believed in the group. Motown didn't. In your arms I wanna stay. VIP records. That's where Motown sent acts they didn't know what to do with. Secondary imprint, secondary push, secondary respect. The Elgins released 3 singles. That's it. Even though they kept recording. The rest left in the vaults. We wanted to do more, Lamont Dozier said years later about working with Sandra Mallett Edwards, the Elgins' lead singer. She was a great singer, but we couldn't do everything. Translation, Holland Dozier Holland had bigger priorities. The Supremes in the Four Tops, acts Motown actually cared about. By 1967, the group disbanded. Sandra left to raise her family. Motown lost interest entirely, stopped releasing anything they'd recorded. Then in 1971, something strange happened. Heaven Must Have Sent You became a hit in England. Northern Soul Kids made it a top 3 record. The Elgins reformed with a new singer and toured the UK, but no new recordings. Motown had already moved on. By the time producers finally pulled their unreleased material from the vaults, In the 2000s, most of the Elgins were gone. Sandra Edwards died in 2002. Never got to hear what she'd recorded 35 years earlier finally see the light. Real talk, only 9% of you are subscribed. That hurts. We're spending hours digging through archives, fact-checking every detail, bringing these stories back to life. And if you're watching this far, you clearly care. So hit subscribe. It's free and takes 2 seconds. Now, to my subscribers, barely any of you have joined the membership. And honestly, that stings even more. You know the work we put in. You keep coming back. If these videos have ever made you feel something, if this music means something to you, join the membership. It's $1 coffee a month, and it's the only way we keep this going. Let's build this together. All right, back to it. Number 8, Brenda Holloway. In 1964, Brenda Holloway was more popular than the Supremes. Not a joke, not an exaggeration. Every Little Bit Hurts put her on Dick Clark's Caravan of Stars tour, while Diana Ross was still at the bottom of the bill. Berry Gordy called her the most beautiful woman ever signed to Motown. The Beatles invited her to open for them at Shea Stadium. And then Gordy decided he only had room for 1 star. Every time Brenda recorded, her album sat on the shelf. Motown's West Coast signing got Detroit treatment, which meant no treatment at all. By 1968, her second album had been delayed for years. Smokey Robinson called her into the studio for a session. She walked out. Not after the session, during it. Middle of the take, Brenda packed her things and left Motown for good. She was 22 years old. In 1969, she sued for unpaid royalties from You've Made Me So Very Happy, the song she wrote that became a massive hit when Blood, Sweat, and Tears covered it. The legal fees cost almost as much as the settlement. She married a minister, had 3 daughters, and disappeared from music for 20 years. If you were in California in the 70s and saw someone in a church choir who looked familiar, that might have been Brenda Holloway. One of Motown's brightest voices, singing for free on Sundays. She only came back in the 90s after Mary Wells died. Even then, Brenda's comeback was small clubs and European tours, chasing what Motown stole the first time around. I can't go on giving my life away. Number 7, Teena Marie. Teena Marie was Motown's biggest white solo artist, and Motown tried to trap her there. When she signed in 1976 at age 19, the contract was iron tight, exclusivity clause, option to pay her a minimum of $6,000 per year, but only if Motown felt like it. She couldn't leave, she couldn't work for anyone else, and after her 4th album went gold in 1982, selling over 400,000 copies, Motown made $1.7 million in profit, then refused to release new material. They held her contract, but wouldn't let her record, wouldn't promote her, just kept her locked in place while the money dried up. Teena Marie had written songs, had ideas, had momentum, and Motown said no, not because the music was bad, because they could. She sued in 1982. Motown countersued. The legal battle lasted 2 years and cost her nearly $1 million in fees, but she won. The judge ruled that Motown's contract was essentially slavery, keeping an artist under exclusive control while paying them nothing. California passed a law because of her case, the Brockert Initiative. Named after her real name, Mary Christine Brockert. It made it illegal for record labels to hold artists hostage without releasing their work. It wasn't something I set out to do, Teena said in 2004. I just wanted to get away from Motown and have a good life, but it helped a lot of people. Luther Vandross, the Mary Jane Girls, dozens of artists used that law to escape bad contracts. Teena Marie didn't just fight for herself. She fought for everyone Motown had trapped, and it cost her everything she'd earned. Number 6, the Marvelettes. The Marvelettes gave Motown its first #1 hit. Please, Mr. Postman, December 1961. First Motown single to hit #1 on the Billboard pop chart. Not the Supremes, not the Temptations, not Stevie Wonder. The Marvelettes got there first, and Motown thanked them by forgetting they existed. By 1964, the Supremes were the priority. Diana Ross got the Holland Dozier Holland songs. The Marvelettes got Too Many Fish in the Sea, which they picked over Where Did Our Love Go because it had better percussion. That song became a Supremes breakthrough. The Marvelettes' choice became a footnote, one by one the members left. Juanita Cowart had an anxiety breakdown in 1963. Georgiana Tillman got sick with lupus and sickle cell in 1965. Gladys Horton left in 1967 to care for her son, who had cerebral palsy. Motown kept releasing singles under the Marvelettes' name anyway, just Wanda Rogers and session singers. When Motown moved to Los Angeles in 1972, the group officially disbanded, and then came the reckoning. In 1987, the surviving members sued Motown for unpaid royalties. They'd sold millions of records, made the label millions of dollars, got almost nothing back. Here's the part that still stings. They didn't even own the rights to their own name. Motown did. So when fake touring groups started using the Marvelettes to scam audiences in the 80s, the real Marvelettes couldn't do anything about it. George Anna Tillman died in 1980 at age 36, still waiting for her money. Number 5, David Ruffin. David Ruffin had the greatest voice in Motown. Not the smoothest, not the prettiest, the greatest. When he sang My Girl, you believed every word. When he sang Ain't Too Proud to Beg, you felt the desperation. That voice could have carried him for decades. Instead, it carried him to a crack house in Philadelphia. Ruffin joined the Temptations in 1964 and became the face of the group. But by 1968, his ego and his cocaine use made him impossible to work with. He demanded the group be renamed David Ruffin and the Temptations. Just like Diana Ross and the Supremes, Otis Williams fired him in June. So sweet, but now it's not. He sued Motown to get out of his contract. The legal battle dragged on for years. Even when he finally went solo, Motown's lawyers made sure he couldn't fully break free. His solo career had moments. My Whole World Ended in 1969. Walk Away from Love in 1975. But nothing stuck. By the 80s, Ruffin was performing at small clubs, chasing the high he'd had with the Temptations. In 1989, the Temptations were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Ruffin briefly reunited with the group. things looked up. Then on June 1st, 1991, Ruffin collapsed in a West Philadelphia crack house. Someone drove him to the hospital in a limousine and dumped him at the emergency room entrance. He died 90 minutes later at age 50 from a cocaine overdose. He just finished a month-long tour in England, made nearly $300,000. When he died, they found $53 in his pocket. The rest, gone. Money belt missing. Briefcase with traveler's checks, gone. David Ruffin's family believes he was robbed. The official ruling, accidental overdose. Number 4, Mary Wells. Mary Wells was Motown's first star. Before the Supremes, before the Temptations, before Marvin Gaye became Marvin Gaye, Mary Wells was the one who proved Motown could make hits. My Guy went to number 1 in 1964. The Beatles called her their favorite American singer, and then she made a choice that haunted her for the rest of her life. Mary's contract was signed when she was 17, still a minor. Her husband convinced her she could get a better deal somewhere else. So in 1964, at the peak of her success, she sued Motown to get out. The court ruled in her favor. 20th Century Fox offered her $500,000, album deals, movie roles. She left Motown thinking she was set for life. But here's what Mary didn't know. Berry Gordy had connections. Rumors spread that Motown quietly told radio stations not to play her new material. True or not, her record stopped charting. The movie roles never materialized. Within a year, 20th Century Fox dropped her. For the next 25 years, Mary Wells bounced between labels. Epic, Jubilee, Reprise, small clubs, oldies tours, nothing stuck. In 1990, she was diagnosed with laryngeal cancer. The treatment saved her life but destroyed her voice. Without health insurance, the medical bills wiped out what little she had left. She sold her home, lived on benefit concerts organized by other artists. She sued Motown again in the early 90s for unpaid royalties. Got a settlement. Too little, too late. Mary Wells died on July 26, 1992, at age 49, broke, unable to sing. The woman who gave Motown its first number 1 hit spent her final years relying on charity. Diana Ross, Mary Wilson, and the Temptations paid for her funeral. Motown sent flowers. Number 3, Tammi Terrell.
I'll be there in a hurry. You don't have to worry. Oh, baby,
Tammi Terrell's mother barred everyone from Motown from her funeral. Everyone except Marvin Gaye. He was the only one she trusted, the only one who'd actually cared. Tammi collapsed on stage in October 1967 singing Your Precious Love with Marvin at a college in Virginia. Brain tumor. Doctors found it immediately. She was 22 years old. Between 1967 and 1970, Tammi had 8 brain surgeries. She lost her eyesight, lost her hair, dropped to 93 pounds, spent the final months in a wheelchair, unable to speak, and Motown kept releasing her music. Here's what people don't talk about. Some of Tammy's final album wasn't even Tammi. Valerie Simpson sang guide vocals that Motown allegedly used when Tammi was too sick to record. Marvin Gaye called it another money-making scheme on Berry Gordy's part. But here's the part that destroyed her mother. For years, Tammi had been in an abusive relationship with David Ruffin. He hit her with a motorcycle helmet, hit her with a machete. Other Temptations members saw the bruises. Motown knew, nobody stopped it. After Tammi collapsed, Motown downplayed her illness, kept booking her for appearances between surgeries, kept working her until her body gave out entirely. She went into a coma in January 1970, died on March 16th at age 24. At the funeral, Marvin Gaye gave the eulogy while You're All I Need to Get By played in the background. Tammy's mother, Jenny, blamed Motown for failing to protect her daughter. She banned every executive from the service. Marvin never fully recovered. He told friends that Tammy's death was the beginning of the end for him. Number 2, The Spinners. The Spinners spent 9 years at Motown working as shipping clerks. Not a metaphor, actual shipping clerks. While the Temptations and Four Tops got Holland Dozier Holland's best songs and headlined world tours, the Spinners packed boxes in the warehouse. They also chauffeured other artists, managed road crews, chaperoned the Jackson 5. They'd signed with Motown in 1963 and waited and waited. For nearly a decade, they got second-tier producers, second-tier songs, second-tier treatment. One member said it plainly. Motown has a lot of groups with the same caliber as the Spinners, and we felt we were always getting lost in the shuffle. In 1970, Stevie Wonder threw them a lifeline. He wrote, "It's a Shame," specifically for them. The song hit number 14 on the pop chart. Finally, after 7 years, the Spinners had a hit. Motown's response, nothing. No follow-up push, no priority treatment, just back to the shuffle. In 1972, Aretha Franklin pulled them aside. "Leave Motown," she said. "Come to Atlantic." Their contract was expiring anyway. They left. And then, immediately, they became superstars. First Atlantic album, 5 top 100 singles. I'll Be Around went to number 3. Could It Be I'm Falling in Love went gold. But I know there's always a chance. Over the next 7 years, they scored 11 consecutive top 10 R&B hits, 5 gold albums, Hollywood Walk of Fame star in 1976. Everything Motown refused to give them, Atlantic delivered in months. The Spinners didn't fail at Motown. Motown failed them for 9 years. Number 1, Florence Ballard. Florence Ballard had the best voice in the Supremes. Not Diana Ross, not Mary Wilson. Florence. Ask anyone who was there in the early days. Flo was the one who could sing. Powerful, soulful, church-trained. She was supposed to be the star. But Berry Gordy was dating Diana Ross. So Diana became the lead. Florence and Mary became background singers. And when the group was renamed Diana Ross and the Supremes in 1967, Florence started missing rehearsals, drinking heavily, showing up late. In July 1967, right before a show at the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas, Gordy pulled Florence aside. "If you go on stage," he told her, "I'll throw you off." Cindy Birdsong was already standing by. She put on Florence's clothes and took her place. Florence Ballard was 24 years old, and just like that, she was out.
But all you do is treat me bad. Break my heart.
Motown offered her a settlement, $2,500 a year for 6 years, $15,000 total for one of the founding members of the most successful girl group in history. Then they told her she had no right to even say she'd been a supreme.
So deep in love with you.
Florence sued for $8.7 million in 1971. Lost. Her lawyer embezzled what little money she had left. Her house went into foreclosure. Her husband left. By 1974, Florence Ballard, who'd sung on 10 #1 hits, was living in her sister's house collecting welfare.
Let's do some kissing and making up. Don't throw up.
She tried to make a comeback in 1975. Did one benefit show in Detroit. The crowd loved her. Less than a year later, on February 22nd, 1976, Florence died of cardiac arrest.
Why must we separate, my love?
She was 32 years old, broke, living on public assistance. The woman who helped build Motown's empire never saw a dime of what she'd earned. Her gravestone was paid for by donations.